please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, straight to the big exclusive. Despite a slump in global crude prices, there has been no relief just yet for Indian consumers as fuel prices have risen for the 15th straight day. In light of this, I spoke with the Economic Affairs Secretary Subhash Chandra Garg, who believes that fuel prices will start to move lower, perhaps even as early as the next 24 to 48 hours, as Indian oil marketing companies start factoring in the global crude price decline as well as the stronger rupee. He went on to say that the government is also looking at a long-term solution to tackle oil prices, but this plan, he added, could not be put out in a hurry. According to the Economic Affairs Secretary, the biggest challenge in front of the government while coming up with this plan is to ensure that the country's fiscal math does not sputter. But it's clear, because of the fortnightly revision that oil marketing companies undergo, we are expecting to see some relief in prices at the pump level in India over the next few days. Take a listen.
It's the oil companies which determine the prices. They take 15 days average, so in this 15 days period for initial about 11 to 12 days, the oil prices were going up. In last 2-3 days, they've started softening. So the average still is going up. Now, when the 16th day arrives or 17th day arrives, the higher price will go out of the 15 days calculation and the newer price will come in. So I would suspect that now onward there might be some reduction in the price which the oil companies will announce. There's also been some moderation in the rupee exchange rate that also gets reflected. So hopefully the new prices from now onward would be somewhat lower than what they have been announcing in the past. I don't think there can be any hurried decision, but at the same time, I'm not at all saying that these one should take very, very long time to decide. So a certain kind of examination has taken place. I think the matter is still in further consultation with all the stakeholders and all, and hopefully soon the long-term map for the same should be announced by the government. The challenge before the government is to ensure that the fiscal math does not sputter. There is no adverse implications on the fiscal math, and we continue to maintain our consolidation on the fiscal front.
Well, so that is the Economic Affairs Secretary saying that expect a reduction at the pump level over the next few days, and that is because oil marketing companies will now have to factor in the decline in global crude prices, which we've seen over the last few days, as well as the stronger rupee. But on to the other big story that we're tracking. The Tamil Nadu government has shut down Sterlite copper smelting plant in Tuticorin for good. The order from the AIADMK government comes days after violence singed the coastal town of Tuticorin. 13 people were killed and more than 100 injured after the police opened fire on protesters seeking the closure of the Sterlite plant, citing health hazards. The government today has highlighted that it endorsed the Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board's closure direction. The government directed the TNPCB to seal the unit and close the plant permanently. Jude Sanet joins us now. Jude, this is really a face saver for the EPS government, is it not? Because in the past, let's be clear, the Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board has held the company guilty of violations, yet they've gone on to give them clearances for not one expansion but several expansions. In fact, another expansion is on the anvil, and now after the protest, suddenly the government wakes up to the fact that there are violations and the plant should be shut down permanently after being in operations in 1996.
You couldn't have put it better, Shireen. In fact, let's look at the language of the two pieces of communication that have come out from the Tamil Nadu government. First of all, the Chief Minister's office, E.K. Palanisamy, is of course the state's Chief Minister, sends out a press release saying that in keeping in mind the welfare and the wishes, quote unquote, of the people of Tuticorin, it has been decided by the senior leadership of the AIADMK and of course the government that as far as the plant is concerned, the plant, of course, will be shut. And, of course, this is something the press release said that Jayalalitha would have done if she were alive. So, of course, the Chief Minister taking a very emotive, approach towards towards explaining why this decision really was arrived at. But no sooner was that press release issued, the government order, the key document, clearly said that in keeping with those Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board, board observations with regard to the violations that the plant had, of course, had undergone, with regard to, of course, the fact that it had not been given its consent to operate as far as a renewal is concerned. The fact is that while electricity also was shut off at the plant on the 24th of May, in keeping with all these factors, it wanted the plant shut, and of course the Tamil Nadu government went on to endorse the Tamil Nadu Pollution Control Board's view that the plant should be shut, and said that of course a seal would be placed. This of course happened merely an hour ago when the collector of Tuticorin, Sandeep Nanduri, went about placing a permanent seal on the plant, going on to state that this is not a technical closure, the plant is well and truly permanently closed. Now the timing of this communication is also crucial, because remember, it comes just a couple of hours after the Tuticorin police in its FIR stated that 2 state government officials of the rank of a deputy Tasildar had gone about proceeding with those instructions to open fire on the crowd. So remember, the Tamil Nadu government is actually placing the blame on 2 officers at the Tasildar level. They've named 2 people, in fact, Shekhar and Kannan. Therefore, the government and the senior leadership and, of course, the Chief Minister's office very keen to wash off all responsibility, wash their hands off with regard to the issue itself. And a face saver, of course, is one way of doing this by way of the release a little earlier in the day. Shireen.
Well, the matter is already being challenged in court even before this closure order was put out by the Tamil Nadu government. So it's not done just yet. But Jude, appreciate you joining us. We'll get more details on that on India Business Hour. But other stories that we're tracking tonight, the Delhi government today has come out with draft rules to regulate hospital profit margins in the national capital. The government has put these draft rules in the public domain, seeking stakeholder views over a period of 30 days. One of the key highlights from the draft is that private hospitals will be asked to prescribe drugs under the National List of Essential Medicines on priority. Ashpreet Sethi joins us now to take us through the key highlights from the advisory that's been put out by the Delhi government to regulate medicines and consumables. Ashpreet, this is a draft inviting stakeholder comments. Take us through what else it prescribes.
Well, after 2 major incidents where private hospitals had resulted to negligence and even issues as far as overpricing is concerned, now the Delhi government is trying to bring about amendments to the existing rules as far as Nursing Home Act is concerned. Now, what are the proposals here? The first, of course, being that this draft rule has been put in public domain. 30 days has been given to all stakeholders to respond to that, and the rules will be finalized after that. Now, the first proposal being that private hospitals will not be forcing their patients to buy in-house or from the chemists that are already existing in hospitals. Maximum 50% markup on medicines sold by private hospitals or by manufacturers who are trying to sell their medicines at the chemists. In fact, let me correct myself here, not only private hospitals, all hospitals across Delhi, this will have to be adhered by, otherwise their licenses will be cancelled. Now, of course, another point here being that private hospitals and other hospitals will maintain dignity as far as the dead are concerned, because remember, it has been an issue where dead bodies are not released till payments are done. So this is a proposal where they've come that irrespective of whether payment is done or not, dead bodies will have to be released. Existing rules will be changed, even to the fact of how critical surgery packages are given by private hospitals and others, where as far as once the price is decided for the package, it will not be changed while the surgery is going on. And in fact, if a second surgery is required subsequent to the first one, the hospital will charge half of it. Now, these are some basic proposals that have been given. After the stakeholders' comments come in after 30 days, we can expect amendments to the existing rules, but now it remains to be seen whether the hospitals will agree to the proposals that have been put in the public domain.
Well, thanks very much, Ashpreet, for joining us. To take that discussion forward with us this evening, Ashish Khaitan, leader of the Aam Aadmi Party, also with us, the former Chief Secretary of the Delhi government, Shailaja Chandra, and the President of the Indian Medical Association, Ravi Vankhetkar. Ashish, appreciate you joining us here on the program. I understand that you've given 30 days to invite stakeholder comments on this draft advisory that you've put forward. But Ashish, has there been any consultation before you put this advisory out with the Indian Medical Association, with hospitals operating in Delhi. I would imagine that there has been some conversation that's taken place before you arrived at this draft. Can you explain to us the process that's been followed?
Yes, of course. This advisory itself is a product of several months-long consultation with different stakeholders. I think if you open the advisory, you will find right at the start the advisory says that a committee comprising of 9 members was constituted by the Honorable Minister of Health for formulating a policy regarding allegations of excessive charging, etc., etc. And this 9-member committee had representation of Indian Medical Association, Delhi Medical Council, Delhi Medical Association and other stakeholders. So this is not an arbitrary exercise, this is a consultative participatory exercise in which different stakeholders have already participated, and further now comments have been sought. I think what the issues here are at stake are very vital issues, which was that time and again we hear complaints of excessive charging, malpractices, lot of variation in which the packages are sold to patients and so on. And it is, I think that need of the hour is to standardize, bring transparency and hold all nursing homes and private hospitals accountable to high standards.
I couldn't agree with you more that there is a need for more transparency, certainly, and the idea and the hope was that most states would actually adopt the Clinical Establishments Act, which attempts to do exactly that. Now, post the stakeholder comments, which you expect over the next 30 days, what's the process from here on? Will you need to bring in a new law? Will the current law need amendment? Will there be a new act that needs to be put forward? How is this going to work? Will you need the LG's permission for any of this to go through?
Again, the advisory itself has mentioned that perhaps some rules framed under the Delhi Clinical Establishment Act may need to be amended, or certain new rules need to be added. But I'll tell you from the past experience of the Delhi government with regard to its interaction and interface with private hospitals in Delhi, is that invariably all the advisories issued by Delhi government have been more or less complied by private establishments because of the reasonable nature and the democratic fashion in which these advisories had been issued in the past. So I don't see any reason why this particular advisory, after due consultation, whatever shape it takes, will face any pushback. And the idea is not to, wield a stick. The idea is to evolve a standard to which everybody willfully complies.
Okay, I think that would be music to the ears of the healthcare services community. But let me get in the former Chief Secretary of the Delhi government, Shailija Chandra, in as well. Ms. Chandra, we've often on CNBC TV18 in conversations with you spoken about the need for greater transparency as well as standardization. The advisory that the Delhi government has put out, do you believe that this adequately addresses some of those concerns? And B, do you believe that, as Ashish Khaitan is pointing out, this is not the government acting with a heavy hand. This is the government trying to get healthcare service providers to bring in a higher degree of transparency and standardization for the benefit of patients.
Shireen, what I have heard, because I have not had much access to the exact notification, but all I can say is that it is well intentioned to be able to contain the kind of profiteering and commercialization. However, health is an industry right now. If it is an industry, it has to be regulated under a statute. The Delhi Nursing Homes Act 1953 is an outdated, toothless piece of legislation. The Clinical Establishment Act has not been adopted in Delhi. If they adopt the Clinical Establishments Act, even then, on the question of pricing and on the question of containment of price, you need the Act to give you that power. Neither does the Nursing Homes Act have it, and the Clinical Establishment Act, even if it comes in Delhi, does not have that power. If that power is not with the Act, the rule-making authority cannot assume any power. So I would say a very well-intentioned idea of containing profiteering and commercialization, but ultimately goodwill alone will not work. This is a commercial business, and if people find that there is no regulation which has teeth, and there are no people who are going to be, taken to task for not doing what they are asked to do, then it is just like, good wishes and please do this, which some people, yes, Mr. Khaitan is right. At times when government issues guidelines and advisories, they are taken seriously, but only up to a point. When it comes to hard brass tacks of commercialization, ultimately the market takes over, and there is cutthroat competition. I would also like to add,
No, I just wanted to make a point that, the health minister did say that if hospitals don't adhere to the final law passed after public comments, then their licenses will be cancelled. But you're saying that the act itself does not give them...
Absolutely not, because the 1953 Act only had in mind tiny nursing homes and maternity homes, and the fine, if you look at it, is 100 rupees. All that has to be changed. You will need a new act. I'm not saying it's not needed. I have been saying
you will need a new act.
Long time that you need a regulation. It has to be on the lines of the Central Electricity and the Delhi Electricity Regulatory Commission, a tribunal, something like that. Unless it has teeth and it has legal weaponry, there's no way that commercial organizations, they are an industry after all, and they will behave like an industry.
Sure. Ashish, very quickly, I'd like you to respond to Ms. Chandra that while you might be well-intentioned, if you don't have the powers under the Act, it'll pretty much be toothless.
My response to that would be that I partially agree with her and I partially disagree. To say that health is only an industry and there is only commercialization and profiteering, I think would be a slightly over-the-top statement, because there are medical professionals and there are clinical establishments which have at their core public service and patient care in the way they function. So I won't say that everybody out there is out to make maximum money and profitize.
No, I don't think she's suggesting that. I don't think she's suggesting that.
No. So one. Two, in general, what is our experience? Our experience shows that in government, the first response is to make new laws, bring new rules, and excessively legislate and excessively regulate. I think that's not the approach of this government, because while we realize that private healthcare needs to be regulated, we also realize that private healthcare is very, very critical for providing public healthcare, because there is a gap between government capacity and what
I don't think anybody's arguing
the demand which is
I don't think anybody's arguing about the demand-supply mismatch and the need for the private healthcare sector. But Ashish, a specific point. So you're essentially saying,
the short point that I want to make
so you're essentially saying that the Delhi nursing home rules of 2011 will be amended.
See, if necessary, new rules can be brought in, old rules can be amended. But I think we are, focusing too much on legislative part or the rule-making part of it. What this exercise has done for the first time, that so far there was no advisory in public domain that private hospitals, whether there are commercial hospitals or small nursing homes, they will only prescribe drugs which are available in the national list of essential medicines, and if they are going out of it, then there will be cap of 50% on the cost of procurement or MRP, whichever is lower. There was no advisory so far which talk about how packaging will be done, how pricing will be done, how counseling will be done, on how investigation and procedures will be.
But the question is, will this be binding or not? The question then is, will this be binding or not? That is the point. That is the concern that Shailija Chandra is raising. She's in agreement with you that this is the need of the hour. But she's questioning the fact that this will be binding because the law doesn't provide for that kind of power to be exercised.
See, that's what I am saying. I think we are missing the wood for the trees. law, rules, regulations. If the stage comes to it, we will cross that bridge also, which is what new laws need to be brought in, what new rules need to be framed. By the way, I'll just tell you, the Clinical Establishment Act has already been adopted by several other states in the country. Have things changed over there? There are several states which have already adopted Clinical Establishment Act. Have things completely changed? A paradigm shift has happened? Has it brought complete transparency and accountability over there? I think we need to focus more on end product and not like what process and route we will take. Yeah.
Okay, so you're basically trying to say that you want to get the private healthcare industry on board with you, and you believe that it's not going to be a heavy-handed approach that the government will take. B.S. Ajay Kumar, I want to talk about some of the specifics and ask you what this is actually going to mean operationally as far as healthcare service providers are concerned. Some of the highlights of the advisory, the National List of Essential Medicines, you will have to prescribe drugs from the NLEM, a maximum of 50% of the markup on medicines. That is what the advisory says will be allowed. Private hospitals can give high-risk packages. You will have to put a cap on the packages that are provided to patients. I mean, as I pointed out, these are just some of the highlights of what the government has put out this evening. What do you make of it, and operationally, what is it going to mean for you?
See, these are all what they're trying to do. In my view, they are not focusing on the type of quality and outcomes. As a doctor, apart from running hospitals, I can tell you the focus should be on the outcomes and not cheap medicine. And the reason we are discussing all this today, the price, somebody saying profiteering. First of all, where is the profiteering when the return on investment is only 6%? I think they're all totally misguided statements. All I want to say is, as long as it is majority of paying patients are cash out of pocket, this debate will go on. And as you put price controls, it will severely interfere with the quality of treatment. We will go for cheap quality treatment. India has advanced greatly. A value-based player, outcome is great. We are actually lowest in the world in terms of technology and service we provide. But if you interfere with this, we will go back in decades where we provide cheap care. You know, and everybody will adjust to that. You know, we don't really, private equity will not come into healthcare. You know, why will they come? They want the returns. India has advanced so much because of investments. Global investors see it, and the investments are what driving. Government is not driving. So, no, like HCG Group, we don't have 1 rupee grant from government, not a single piece of land, an inch of land from the government. So why should government interfere? They should monitor. Are we providing quality care? Are we doing this? I think their interference in saying price control is very harmful to the system, whatever way we try to do. They should encourage what Swiss model, which we have recommended, mandatory insurance for everyone. Make it cashless, so everybody is insured, private, public, for person who is in self-business, everybody takes a mandatory insurance, and that will cover, that will increase the numbers. That will automatically cover, and we will deal with the insurance companies. Government is out of the system. Government should not interfere. We work with insurance companies, make sure we deal for the type of service we provide, because then we are dealing with people who have knowledge, global knowledge of what it costs to provide a treatment. If somebody is sitting in a government, it will not have the government knowledge, global knowledge of what it costs. They themselves go abroad, you know, politicians go abroad, get treatment, get their bills, and see what is the bill for the same care. Then you will know what is the actual bill they are incurring.
Let me get a quick comment in from Ashish Ketan. Ashish, monitor by all means, don't intervene and don't interfere, because you are going to in fact set the private healthcare industry, which you yourself acknowledged is providing a service and a much needed service to bridge the healthcare deficit in the country. You're doing that a disservice by bringing in price controls and price caps.
Let the insurance take care of it, you know, provide insurance to everyone.
Yeah, let me get him to respond, Mr. Ajay Kumar.
I think there are several issues have been raised here, and I think if you examine each of them very carefully, you will find that they are without any basis or logic. Number one, we are not interfering or intervening at all, and when we say that all pricing should be reasonable, when we say that drugs prescribed outside the national list of essential medicines should be capped at 50% profit of the procurement cost, I think that's a very reasonable return. It's not 6%.
I want to
50%.
reply to that.
And that applies to implants. Can I, Mr. Kumar, can I?
No, that particular issue, can I talk?
I'll just get you to respond. I'll get you to respond. One second, sir. 1 second, sir. Let him finish, and then Mr. Ajay Kumar. Mr. Ajay Kumar, let him finish, and then I'll get you to respond. Ashish, go ahead.
I think, Mr. Kumar, you should not get worked up. You should just listen very carefully. I didn't intervene when you were speaking.
Repeatedly told question. I want to give a fair answer.
So implants.
Yes, go ahead, Ashish.
Medicines, all should be priced at 50%. The cap is 50%, and I think which is a very reasonable cap. 50% is a sufficient margin. Right now, it was completely left open. So there have been reports, and these are reports by institutions. National, I think, Pharmaceutical Pricing Association, they have come out with a report which says that in some cases they found that the profit was at 1700%. These are all tabulated, recorded, empirical reports. So one. Number two is that when packages are offered to patients, sometimes the patients don't know that what are the hidden costs built in those packages. We just want that all those packages should be discussed threadbare with the patient, and there should not be any hidden costs. And two, if there are any risk premium which is also part of the package, if there are additional complications, then pricing should be according to certain set standards which should be globally acceptable and globally enforceable and globally practiced right now. And the second point, which is that this will discourage private investment or global investment or foreign investment. I think that's not right. If foreign investment or private investment is coming into medical health care for making reasonable profit, then I think nobody should be discouraged. And that's certainly not the intention of the government, to discourage any private investment. All we want is transparency
well, the question
and some set standards, and everybody adheres to those standards.
Okay. Mr. Ajay Kumar, quick final say. We're completely out of time. Very quickly, sir.
You are looking in isolation for the drugs. For example, somebody has a big center in the heart of the city. When we have multiple centers, we do global purchase. So we may be purchasing at a lower price compared to somebody who's running a small hospital. Why should we be compared? Our operating costs are high. See, what we are not looking at is what is our operating cost? What is the rental cost? What are these costs to do? See, you're looking in isolation of a pharma, but look at the entire cost. How many people have employed? How many talented doctors we have? What is the price we pay for the doctors? Some of the doctors are running 200 something in crores to bring in talent from abroad to provide that quality. What does it take? That is why our return on investment is only 6%. Please read the EY report showing very clearly hospitals' return on investment is very low. Why is it so low then? If they're making so much profit and taking boatloads of money, where is this boatloads of money going? You know, look here, we are all accountable. We are all audited by Big Four. You please see what is our margin. Nobody has a margin more than 5, 8%, 9% in the industry. This is a question of survival. No private institution, I will give you one advice, no private institution will survive with these kind of measures of price cap. Please go for insurance. Make sure everybody is insured. What does it matter how I negotiate with the farmer?
Mr. Ajay Kumar, You've certainly started the public commentary process today by providing your comments here to Ashish Khaitan live on television, and I can imagine that this process will continue. But gentlemen, we're unfortunately completely out of time. We'll bring you back again to take this conversation forward. But for this evening, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV18. Ashish Khaitan, Shailaja Chandra, and BS Ajay Kumar. Thanks very much indeed. Time for us to take a break, but don't go anywhere. Special conversation with the Economic Affairs Secretary coming up right after this. Stay right there.